They thought we had no natural weapons in the jungle, then they saw our teeth. Best HFY stories. The jungle was dense, a tangle of thick vines, towering trees, and the persistent hum of life that filled the air. To the untrained eye, it was a world of harsh survival, a place where only the strongest thrived. But to the beings who called it home, it was simply home. The humans had arrived just days ago, their technology gleaming and foreign against the wild backdrop of the jungle. They were explorers, or so they claimed. They came with their shiny gear, heavy boots, and the belief that the jungle was no match for their science and machines. They saw us, our small, quiet tribe. From their perspective, we were weak, primitive. They assumed we had no weapons, no way to defend ourselves beyond what they saw as crude tools and spears. They thought we were just like the other creatures of the jungle, vulnerable to the predators that roamed beneath the canopy. But we weren't like the other creatures. We had something they didn't. It all began with their leader, a man with a thick beard and a condescending smile, who decided to test us. He had seen us hunting with primitive weapons, spears fashioned from wood and bone, and thought it was time to show us how far behind we were in terms of progress. He sent his team, armed with rifles, machetes, and high-tech devices, into the heart of our territory. He believed it would be an easy task to subdue us, to show us the strength of human ingenuity. What he didn't know was that we weren't the helpless prey they thought we were. Our leader, Taro, had been watching them from the shadows. His eyes, sharp and unblinking, tracked their every movement. We had seen their guns and their machines, but we had something more, a deep connection with the jungle, a knowledge of its every rhythm. The humans ventured deeper, their movements clumsy and loud against the jungle's delicate fabric. They stumbled into a clearing, and that's when Taro made his move. With a single, fluid motion, Taro emerged from the underbrush. His figure was nearly invisible against the dark green foliage, his presence like a whisper on the wind. The humans froze, startled by the sudden appearance of our leader. He was tall, his face painted with the symbols of our people, his body lean and toned, an embodiment of the jungle itself. The humans raised their weapons, but they had underestimated one thing, us. With a growl, Taro flashed a grin, and in that moment, they saw it, the teeth. Our teeth were unlike any they had ever seen, long, sharp, and gleaming white. They were the perfect tools for survival in the wild. But there was more to our teeth than just their physical presence. For centuries, our people had honed the ability to use them with terrifying precision. Our teeth were not just weapons, they were tools of communication, of ritual, and of death. We used them to hunt, to defend, and, in the case of the humans, to show them the true meaning of fear. Taro stepped forward, his teeth glinting in the fading sunlight. The humans backed away, confusion and fear creeping into their faces. One of them, the leader, shouted something, probably in order to fire, but the look in Taro's eyes told them everything they needed to know. In a flash, Taro was upon them, moving faster than any of them could comprehend. He swiped his hand through the air, knocking one of the guns from a soldier's hand. The rest of the humans hesitated for only a fraction of a second, but that was enough. In that split moment, we struck. We had been watching, waiting for this. Our tribe emerged from the shadows like ghosts, each of us wielding our teeth as weapons of precision. The humans had no time to react. We moved as one, a silent storm of sharp edges and deadly grace. No shots were fired, no lives were lost, but the humans learned a valuable lesson that day. They learned that we were not weak. They learned that our natural weapons were not just our teeth but the bond we shared with the jungle, the strength of our spirit, and the deep, unyielding knowledge of our surroundings. As quickly as we had appeared, we vanished back into the jungle, leaving the humans trembling and disoriented. They would never look at us the same way again. They had come to conquer, but they left with a new understanding of what it meant to be human in a world where nature was the true ruler. From that day forward, the jungle was no longer just a place of mystery to the humans. It was a place where they learned to respect, and sometimes fear, the true power of the people who had lived there for centuries. And they never again underestimated the strength of our teeth. End. They thought we had no natural weapons in the jungle, then they saw our teeth, the reckoning. Weeks had passed since our encounter with the humans, but the jungle was far from calm. The air was thick with anticipation, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. We knew it wasn't over. The humans weren't the type to walk away without a fight, and we had made an impression they would not easily forget. It started with strange sounds at night, the crackle of fire in the distance, the whir of machinery, the occasional muffled shout. The humans were back, and they had brought reinforcements. Taro, our leader, was standing at the edge of our village when the first signs appeared. His sharp eyes narrowed, scanning the horizon. We were far from naive. We had been prepared for this moment. The humans, though beaten in their first encounter, were relentless. They had underestimated our resilience, and now they sought to assert their dominance once more. "They will come," Taro said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of 1,000 thoughts, "and we will make them understand." The rest of our tribe gathered in silence. Each of us was born of the jungle, molded by its demands and its wisdom. We knew its secrets, how to track, how to move unseen, how to become one with the environment. But most importantly, we knew how to fight. The humans were learning that the hard way. The next day, they came, armed to the teeth, their machines rumbling like thunder through the jungle. They were different this time, more cautious, more aware, but they still thought they could conquer us. They still believed that their guns, their technology, could defeat us. They were wrong. The jungle was our home, and the moment they stepped into it, they entered a world governed by rules they did not understand. They might have the tools of war, but we had something far more dangerous, the ability to bend the environment to our will. We let them march deeper, thinking they were pushing us back, but we had already surrounded them. From the trees above and the shadows below, we were everywhere, and when the time came, we would strike as one, with the force of the jungle itself. The first move came silently. A scout from their group, one of the younger soldiers, still brimming with bravado, wandered off the path. A mistake that would cost him dearly. He never saw it coming. One of our hunters, swift as a shadow, dropped from the canopy and incapacitated him in seconds. The man never had the chance to scream. His rifle clattered to the ground, and before his comrades could react, he was gone. The jungle swallowed him whole, leaving no trace. Chaos erupted among the humans. They fumbled for their weapons, shouting orders, but their sense of control was slipping fast. They had no idea how to fight in a place where the very land seemed to turn against them. Then we struck in earnest. Taro moved like a storm, a blur of muscle and bone. His teeth gleamed with a terrifying promise, and in the blink of an eye, he had incapacitated 2 more soldiers. The rest of the tribe moved in unison, silent and swift. We worked together, knowing exactly where each of us would be and when. The humans tried to fight back, but their weapons were useless in the dense jungle. Their bullets were slow and predictable, and the jungle itself seemed to fight against them. We were faster, more agile, and far more ruthless than they could ever anticipate. It wasn't just our teeth they feared, it was the way we moved with the jungle, the way we seemed to be part of it. Our connection to the land gave us strength, and we used it to dismantle their confidence piece by piece. One by one, the humans were taken down. There was no mercy, no hesitation. Each one who fell learned the hard truth. We weren't prey. We were predators. We had adapted to the jungle in ways they couldn't begin to understand. And now, it was time for them to learn that they had no place here. In the final moments, the leader, the same one who had underestimated us before, stood at the center of a clearing, staring at us in disbelief. His face was covered in dirt and sweat, his rifle raised, but his hands were trembling. "You can't win," he shouted. "We have technology. We have firepower. Taro stepped forward, his grin widening as his teeth flashed in the sunlight. "You have nothing," he said simply. "This is our home. We are the jungle, and we are its teeth." With those final words, Taro lunged. The leader never had a chance. As the rest of the humans fled into the jungle, terror-stricken and broken, they carried with them one undeniable truth. We had shown them what real strength looked like. It wasn't in guns or machines. It was in the bond between us and the land we called home. From that day forward, the jungle became a place that no human dared to conquer, and those who came after learned quickly to show us respect. They thought we had no natural weapons. Then they saw our teeth. They thought we had no natural weapons in the jungle, then they saw our teeth. The reckoning continues. The jungle had been quiet for a time, too quiet, some of us thought. Taro, ever vigilant, stood watch over our village as the sun dipped below the horizon. A soft wind rustled the leaves, But there was something unnerving about the stillness. We had won the last battle, but the humans were persistent. It would only be a matter of time before they returned, stronger, smarter, more determined to conquer us. But what they didn't know was that the jungle had changed. It was no longer just our home, it was a sanctuary of death for those who dared to challenge us. A few days after the humans' retreat, we noticed strange things. The earth trembled, and the distant hum of engines could be heard again. Like a whisper carried through the trees, we knew they were coming. They had sent a message with their first failure, and now they would return with a new plan. They believed they could outsmart us. Taro gathered us at the edge of the village. We stood together, our silhouettes framed by the last rays of daylight. His eyes scanned the horizon as he spoke, his voice low and measured. They believe they have learned something from the last battle, he said. They believe they can conquer the jungle, but they don't understand one simple truth: the jungle is alive, and so are we. There was a murmur of agreement among the tribe. We were prepared. The humans didn't know it yet, but they were walking into a trap not just of our design but of the jungle's. It had been months since we had first clashed, and now, we had a new weapon, the jungle itself. We had trained the animals, learned how to move with the wind, how to control the very creatures that called this place home. The humans arrived the next morning. This time, they weren't just armed with rifles and guns. They brought drones, mechanized exosuits, and even more advanced technology. They had learned from their mistakes, no doubt. But what they still failed to grasp was that the jungle wasn't a place that could be tamed. It was a force, a living entity that did not bend to human will. At first, they tried to set up camp at the edge of the jungle, arrogantly assuming that their machines would protect them from any surprise attacks. They had no idea they were walking into a nightmare of their own making. Taro led us out that night, our feet silent on the forest floor, our teeth gleaming in the darkness. We had made plans. The jungle itself was now a part of our weaponry, a tool we could manipulate to our advantage. The drones were no match for the shadows that moved unseen through the trees, for the quick-moving predators that could strike without warning. The first strike came with the dawn. The humans, waking to what they thought was another peaceful morning, were greeted by a cacophony of noise. The ground rumbled as we activated our first weapon, the giant spiders. These creatures, huge and silent, emerged from the depths of the jungle, their bodies covered in thick, black fur. Their legs scuttled across the ground like a nightmare made real, and the humans' machines, so advanced, so proud, could do nothing against them. The humans screamed as the spiders began their work, entangling the drones in their webs, disabling the exosuits, and rendering the technology useless. They tried to fire their weapons, but the spiders were too fast, too numerous, and their instinct to protect the jungle was far stronger than any gunfire. Meanwhile, we moved swiftly through the underbrush. Our feet barely touched the earth, and our teeth gleamed in the fading light. We didn't need weapons. Our strength was in our unity, our knowledge of the land, and the animals that now stood with us. Birds of prey swooped down, taking out the remaining drones in mid-flight. Even the jungle's venomous creatures, snakes, spiders, and jaguars, were on our side, moving in synchronized waves of terror and destruction. The humans had no idea what was happening. They were surrounded, trapped in a web of natural chaos they couldn't hope to control. Their technology, once so mighty, was useless against the relentless forces of nature. They tried to flee, but the jungle was everywhere. By the time they made it to the edge of the clearing, they were broken. Their leader, the same man who had first underestimated us, stood trembling, a faint trail of blood down his arm, his rifle discarded in the dirt. His eyes were wide with disbelief. You're animals," he spat, as if that would somehow make his failure easier to bear. Taro stepped forward, his gaze steady, unyielding. He looked at the leader not with anger, but with quiet understanding. "No," Taro said softly, "we are not animals. We are humans. You are the ones who are out of place here." With that, Taro turned his back on the humans and began walking away. We followed, leaving the remaining soldiers to pick up the shattered pieces of their once proud machines. The jungle had won again. It had shown them what it meant to challenge the natural world. The humans never returned after that day. They retreated to their cities, their machines, and their failed empire. But the jungle had become something they could never conquer. It was ours to defend, ours to protect. And the humans, for all their technology, learned that day the most important lesson of all: the jungle had teeth, and we had learned to use them. End. They thought we had no natural weapons in the jungle, then they saw our teeth, the final test. Months had passed since the last confrontation, and the jungle had grown quieter, as though it too sensed the calm before another storm. Taro, ever watchful, stood in the shadow of the ancient trees, his eyes scanning the horizon. Though the humans had retreated once more, there was an undeniable tension in the air. We knew they wouldn't stay away for long. Their pride had been shattered, but the lessons they'd learned hadn't been enough to make them stay silent. It was only a matter of time before they would return, and this time, they would come with everything they had. We weren't wrong. Late one evening, the sound of engines shattered the stillness. We could hear them, the humans, returning in force, bringing with them a fleet of vehicles, helicopters, and new, larger drones. They had come prepared, expecting a different kind of war this time, one that would not be fought with primitive tools, but with machines capable of wiping us off the face of the earth. They had underestimated us. Taro called us together under the canopy of trees, the dim light filtering through the leaves casting long shadows on our faces. The air was thick with anticipation. We could feel the weight of what was coming, but we were ready. They think they can burn the jungle down, Taro said, his voice carrying the gravity of the moment. They believe that with enough power, they can wipe us away, but they don't understand, we are the jungle, and if they want to burn it, they will burn with it. His words struck deep into our hearts. The jungle had always been our home, and now it would be our weapon. We had come to understand its rhythms, its secrets, and its creatures. The humans had thought they could tame it with their machines, but we knew that there was one thing they couldn't control: our bond with the earth itself. The humans moved in fast, their churning engines disturbing the peace that had once held sway over the land. Helicopters hovered overhead, casting long shadows over the jungle floor as their searchlights scanned for signs of life. On the ground, the heavy treads of armored vehicles crushed the foliage beneath them. They were here to destroy, to dominate, and to finally prove that their technology could conquer the untamable wilderness. But they didn't know what they were walking into. At dusk, Taro gave the signal, and the jungle responded. In an instant, everything around us shifted. The trees seemed to close in, their branches creaking as if alive, responding to our call. The animals, who had been silent for days, moved swiftly through the underbrush. The jungle had heard our plea. The time for defense had come. From above, the first of the birds of prey descended. Raptors, sharp-eyed and swift, swooped down to disable the helicopters, their talons slashing at the rotors. One by one, the machines fell, crumpling like paper beneath the strength of the jungle's guardians. The humans inside scrambled, shouting orders, but their panic was no match for the precision of nature's fury. On the ground, the armored vehicles rumbled forward, but they never reached their destination. We had already set our traps. The massive spiders, with their long, lethal legs, moved silently through the dense undergrowth, cutting off the path of the vehicles. They were like moving walls, their webs glistening in the moonlight, creating barriers the machines could not pass. The vehicles tried to plow through, but their engines roared in vain against the strength of nature's resistance. Meanwhile, Taro and I led the tribe, our feet light and silent on the jungle floor. We moved like shadows, slipping through the trees with the grace of predators. We knew where the humans would strike next, how they would try to break through our defenses, and we were ready. We had become a part of the jungle, and it had become a part of us. The humans attempted to fight back, deploying ground troops to try to force their way through the jungle's defenses, but this was where they made their biggest mistake. They thought that our people were the only threat. They didn't realize that every creature in the jungle was a warrior in its own right. The jaguars attacked first, silent and swift. They emerged from the shadows, their yellow eyes glowing in the moonlight. The humans had no idea what hit them. The jaguars were upon them in an instant, tearing into their ranks, their powerful jaws crushing through armor and bone alike. Behind them, the serpents slithered from the undergrowth, venomous and lethal. They struck without warning, their fangs sinking into exposed flesh, paralyzing their victims before the humans even had a chance to react. The humans, now surrounded by nature's fury, were trapped. There was nowhere left to run. Amidst the chaos, the human leader, the same man who had led them into our territory months ago, stood at the center of the battlefield, desperately shouting commands. But his words were lost in the cacophony of war. His soldiers were scattered, terrified, and broken. He saw Taro approach, his expression cold and unyielding. "You can't stop us," the leader shouted, though his voice faltered. "We have the power to burn this jungle to the ground. We'll destroy you all." Taro's lips curled into a smile, his teeth gleaming in the moonlight. He stepped forward, unafraid, his voice calm and unwavering. "You don't understand. The jungle isn't something you can destroy. It's not just trees, soil, and animals. It's us, and as long as we stand, it stands with us." With that, Taro raised his hand. The signal had been given. The final test had begun. The ground beneath the humans' feet trembled, and from all around, the jungle seemed to close in. The last of the humans, in a desperate attempt to survive, tried to escape, some running toward their vehicles, others crawling through the underbrush. But the jungle was unforgiving. The spiders tangled their legs in thick webs, the jaguars stalked their every move, and the venomous creatures waited patiently for their next strike. The leader, now on his knees, looked up at Taro one final time. The words he had once shouted with conviction died on his lips, replaced by terror. He had come to conquer, to wipe us out, to prove that human technology could dominate nature. But in the end, it was the jungle that had won, and it had done so without lifting a single machine, without firing a single bullet. Taro stood over him, his teeth gleaming like a razor's edge. "You thought you could destroy us," he said softly, "but in the end, it was you who were destroyed. The jungle always remembers." And with that, the last of the humans fell silent. End. They thought we had no natural weapons in the jungle, then they saw our teeth, the rise of the ancients. The jungle had not been silent since the humans' final defeat. Though they were gone, their machines and weapons still lingered, like scars upon the land. We had shown them our strength, our unity, and the undeniable power of the jungle. But the battle had not been without its cost. The jungle had taken casualties too, trees burned, animals displaced, and the balance of nature disrupted by the intrusion of technology. However, the jungle does not mourn long. It heals, and it remembers. The land we had fought for had begun to restore itself. Yet something new was stirring beneath the surface. Something ancient and deep, far older than any human machine. It began with whispers, a strange hum in the earth that no one could explain. The elders noticed it first, the vibrations in the roots of the trees, the sudden movement of animals who had once been still. The winds had changed, and the skies seemed heavier, as if the world was holding its breath. Something was coming. Taro stood in the clearing, his eyes fixed on the horizon. His teeth gleamed as always, but today, they bore a different meaning. The jungle was calling. We all felt it, the pull of the land, the deep ancestral power that had been hidden beneath the soil for eons. "They thought they had seen our true strength," Taro said quietly, his voice filled with a new sense of purpose. "But they were wrong. The jungle is not just us, it is the ancients. None of us understood at first. The ancients? We had always been the stewards of the jungle. But this was something deeper, something buried in the forgotten past." Taro's words were heavy with the knowledge of something older than any of us. The elders gathered around him, and the air grew thick with the smell of damp earth and ancient leaves. "The ancients," one elder spoke, "are the spirits of the land itself. They were here long before us, and long before the humans. They live in the trees, in the soil, in the waters. We have learned to communicate with them, but we have not yet awakened their full power." It was then that we understood. The jungle wasn't just a place for survival. It was a living force, and we had only begun to tap into its true power. The ancients, beings older than the world itself, had been waiting for this moment. They had seen the humans come and go, and now, they were ready to reveal themselves. Taro led us deep into the heart of the jungle, further than we had ever gone before. There, at the center of an ancient grove, stood a tree like no other. It was enormous, its trunk twisted and gnarled with age, its branches reaching up to touch the stars, its roots dug deep into the earth, far deeper than any of us could comprehend. This was the heart of the jungle, the place where the ancients resided. As we approached, the air around us grew heavier, charged with an energy we could not see but could feel in our bones. The tree seemed to hum with life, as if it was alive in a way that transcended our understanding. Taro reached out, his hand brushing the bark of the great tree. The ground trembled slightly beneath our feet, and the hum grew louder, like the heartbeat of the world itself. The time has come, Taro said. The ancients are awakening. At his words, the air seemed to shimmer, and the jungle around us responded. The wind picked up, swirling around us, lifting the leaves into the air like a storm. Then, from the roots of the tree, an ancient voice boomed, not in words, but in a deep, resonant hum that filled our chests and minds with its power. "We have heard your call," the voice of the ancients said. "You, the stewards of the land, have proved yourselves worthy. The jungle is yours to command." With those words, the earth itself seemed to rise. The trees swayed as if bending to the will of the ancients, their roots shifting and reshaping the land. The animals, once wild and untamed, now followed our movements, as if they too had been summoned by a power older than time. And then, something incredible happened. The jungle's power, long dormant, surged forward, coursing through us. We felt the energy of the earth flow into our bodies, filling us with strength unlike anything we had ever known. Our teeth, once sharp weapons of defense, now gleamed with the power of the jungle itself, becoming something more, a symbol of the bond between us and the land. We could feel the trees in our veins, the river in our blood, the animals in our hearts. We were no longer just the jungle's stewards, we were its chosen warriors, gifted with the strength of the ancients. Taro turned to face us, his eyes blazing with new power. The humans think they understand the jungle. They believe they can control it. But they have never known its true heart. They have never felt its pulse, never heard its voice. Now, we show them. With a single motion, Taro raised his hand. The earth trembled again, and the jungle responded. The trees shifted, their branches stretching into the sky, their roots reaching deep into the earth. The animals of the jungle gathered around us, as if waiting for the command. The birds soared high above, the jaguars prowled at our sides, and the very ground beneath us seemed to hum with ancient power. "We are the jungle," Taro said, his voice a command that resonated through the land. "And we will show the world what happens when you awaken the ancients." We set out toward the humans' abandoned outpost. They had left behind their machines, their weapons, but we knew that they would not rest. They would come again, as they always did. But this time, the jungle would rise up to meet them, not just as the land, but as a living force of nature, imbued with the strength of the ancients. When the humans returned, they found not just a jungle to conquer, but a living, breathing world that fought back with a vengeance. The machines they had brought were no match for the power of the earth itself. The ancients were with us now, and their power would not be denied. The jungle, with its endless strength and wisdom, had awakened, and it was no longer something the humans could conquer. It was something they had to learn to respect. End. They thought we had no natural weapons in the jungle, then they saw our teeth, the final reckoning. Years had passed since the jungle had become more than just our home. The power of the ancients had forever changed the course of our existence. The humans had learned their lesson, retreating into their cities, licking their wounds and nursing their pride. But the jungle's power, our power, had not waned. It had only grown, deepened, and become more entwined with us. And yet, in the quiet stillness of the jungle, we felt a stirring, a call that reached beyond the trees, beyond the whispers of the animals and the rhythms of the earth. We could feel it in the air. Something was coming, and it was unlike anything we had ever encountered. Taro, now not only our leader but the embodiment of the jungle's will, stood before the great tree of the ancients, his eyes closed, his hand resting lightly against its gnarled trunk. His face, though weathered by time, carried the weight of a deep knowing. "They are coming," Taro spoke, though no one asked him. "The humans, they think we've gone quiet, that the jungle has surrendered its power, but the jungle never surrenders." In the distance, a low hum reverberated through the air. It was familiar, a sound we knew too well. Machines. The humans had not given up on their quest to bend the jungle to their will. They were back, stronger than ever before. But this time, there would be no retreat. This time, there would be no mercy. The machines appeared in the sky first, a fleet of drones, sleek and metallic, gliding over the treetops. Beneath them, armored vehicles rumbled through the jungle, crushing everything in their path. The humans were back, more determined than ever to wipe out the very essence of the jungle they had failed to conquer before. But they underestimated the jungle once more. As the machines descended, the ground beneath them trembled, the trees shook, and from the shadows, the jungle's response came alive. The first to strike were the vines, thick and strong, coiling up from the ground like serpents. The vines twisted and pulled, wrapping around the human machines, stopping them in their tracks. They tried to cut through the vines with their weapons, but the plants were no ordinary flora. They were infused with the very essence of the jungle, its ancient power coursing through them. The humans attempted to fire their guns, but the very air seemed to push against them. It was as though the jungle itself had become a barrier, an impenetrable force that turned their weapons against them. The bullets fell harmlessly to the ground, swallowed by the thick underbrush. Taro stood at the forefront, his voice carrying like thunder through the jungle. You have awakened the jungle's fury, and now you will face its wrath. The ancients are with us, and we will not let you destroy what is ours. The ground exploded with life. From deep within the earth, the massive roots of the ancient trees burst forth, rising like colossal serpents. The jungle had become an army of nature itself. And we were its soldiers. Jaguar and panther, sleek and deadly, emerged from the darkness. Their eyes gleamed with an otherworldly intensity as they moved toward the humans, their muscles coiled, ready to strike. The birds of prey soared overhead, diving in synchronized formations to dismantle the drones that attempted to swarm the jungle like locusts. The humans, panicked and disoriented, scrambled to deploy their countermeasures, but it was too late. The jungle had already reclaimed what was once its own. Taro's voice rang out again, his command absolute, strike. And with that, the final battle began. The jungle itself seemed to turn against the humans. The very trees bent forward, their roots acting like massive claws, uprooting the ground beneath the humans' feet. The great tree of the ancients released a burst of energy, sending out a shockwave of power that sent the machines flying backward, their metal frames bending and crumpling like paper. The humans tried to retreat, but the jungle closed in around them. The paths they had carved through the land were swallowed whole by the creeping vines. The armored vehicles, once so mighty, became stuck in the earth, their engines stuttering and dying as they were overtaken by the roots and plants. It was then that the humans saw it. The teeth. We were not just warriors of flesh and bone. Our teeth, sharp as daggers, glowed with an eerie light, charged with the power of the jungle itself. We had become the perfect weapon, part beast, part force of nature, guided by the ancient spirits that lived in the land. The humans, their faces pale with fear, were cornered. They had no way out. Their machines lay in ruins, their weapons useless. They had come to conquer, to destroy, but they had underestimated the true power of the jungle. Taro stepped forward once more, his teeth bared in a grim smile. You came here with fire, with machines, but you've awakened something far older. The jungle is not yours to control. It was never yours. It was never meant to be tamed. With one final motion, Taro raised his hand, and the jungle responded. The vines, the animals, the earth itself rose in unison, overwhelming the humans with unstoppable force. They fought, they screamed, but in the end, it was futile. When the battle finally ended, when the dust settled and the last of the human machines lay in ruin, the jungle stood victorious. We had not just survived, we had triumphed. The humans, who had come so sure of their power, their technology, had learned that there was something stronger, something that could never be beaten, something that was not bound by time, but was eternal. The jungle. And as the humans retreated once again, broken and defeated, we returned to the heart of the jungle. The ancients watched over us, their presence a constant reminder of our bond with the earth. We had proven that we were not just part of the jungle, we were its chosen, its guardians, and no one, not even the most advanced machines, could ever threaten that again. Taro stood before the great tree, his eyes reflecting the same strength and determination as the land itself. This is our home, and as long as we stand, the jungle will stand with us. The teeth, our greatest weapon, glinted in the moonlight. And the jungle, alive with the strength of the ancients, roared its approval. End.